Welcome to It Takes Two to Tango, conversations that move us. I'm Martina,
And I'm Nat.
and together we are two life coaches on a mission to make the world a better dance floor.
Yeah, in this series, we invite you to a metaphorical dance, which is a conversation about how to partner with life in a more meaningful way.
So, we will translate some of the concepts that we have learned from both Argentine tango and ballroom dancing, and we'll take them off the dance floor so that you too can experience the bliss that we experience in partner dancing. And you'll get to experience that in your life and also in your leadership.
So, shall we dance?
I would be delighted.
All right. So, what we wanted to do today was share a little bit about how this collaboration came to be, because it's actually a little bit of a funny story. Um, Martina had shared something on her Facebook profile about our fictional pregnant lady. She posted this riddle about how a pregnant lady gets up, goes to the kitchen, and gets food. And the question is, what did she open first, right? And what was interesting is I answered her riddle, and then she messaged me that I got it right, and to share it. And in the process of her going to Messenger to write me, she saw a message that I had left her several years ago that had inquired about her passion for dance and how she had wanted to somehow include dancing in her work. And this led to a conversation, and we just really hit it off. And we thought that it would be fun to, at some point when the world opens up again, to do some sort of workshop together and include our passions of Argentine tango and partner dancing with our coaching as a way to support people, as we said earlier, in living a more meaningful life, to partner with life in a more meaningful way. So this was just so Martina came up with the idea of like, well, instead of waiting until the world opens up, what if we just have a conversation weekly, I think, we're not sure yet, um, to discuss some of our insights about how dance informs our coaching, our leadership, how we show up in life. And we actually don't know how many episodes this is going to be, what it's going to include, but we have a number of topics already laid out that we feel inspired to talk about. And I personally really love this flow because I don't always do things off the cuff like this. Um, I have this tendency to try to to plan out and make things perfect. And so this more improvisational way of creating this pop-up conversation is exciting me. It makes me nervous, a little anxious, but it's an exciting type of energy. And this is a big essence of like salon tango as well. Is it's very improvisational. It's not choreographed. You don't really have set steps. You just move how the music moves you. So that's what I have to share about that. Martina, do you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, it was interesting when I saw that message in Messenger, right, that had been waiting there for a couple years. And I thought, oh my God, how did I miss that? And I could have just dismissed it, right? But I've made this commitment to be in conversation. And so I decided, you know what, let's address this, let's talk about it. And so a little bit delayed, I felt like I accepted your invitation to dance or your invitation to converse, which to me are very similar. And so when we talked, we thought about what do we name this thing, right? And there is this figure of speech, it takes two to tango, and it takes two on Zoom to have this conversation. And so we came up with this tagline of conversations that move us. And, I'm so glad that you like that, because what that says to me is it's a conversation that moves us on the dance floor. Like you said, it's, when you first start dancing, it's a little nerve-wracking. You may not know the other person that you're dancing with. I may not know that leader's style, right? I may not know your skill level or, what you have in mind for that music. And so it's up to me then to listen and to respond. And I find that a similar flow of how we experience dancing, especially salon tango, that is so improvisational and you never know what you're going to get, right? Or where you're going to end up on the floor. The same is true for me in conversations. And there are certain conversations that move me, that move a conversation forward, or that move me in my heart, that move me in my mind, that I learn something from. And so, looking at what we talked about, what these episodes could be, and what we could share with our clients and with our friends and with our families, our respective dance families, you in Massachusetts and me here in Virginia, there are a lot of parallels, and I think there's a lot that the two of us have to offer, and that the two of us have to play off of each other in the tango or ballroom fashion of lead and follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one thing that you said, Martina, that really caught my my attention was this idea of you not knowing the skill level of the leader and needing to respond. And I bring this up because these are the type of things that we're going to be talking about, where you needing to adjust and adapt to your leader is very much like us needing to learn how to adapt to life, right? If life is calling us forth, sometimes there are going to be situations where it's asking more of us than we know we have the knowledge for, but we need to trust, right? Or sometimes it asks us of something that we already know how to do, but how can we approach it from being fully present with it rather than just kind of calling in or just going through the motion, right? And so these are some of the things that we want to talk about, because I mean they're really juicy topics to talk about, and just having this awareness, I believe, really makes for a more fulfilling experience of life.
Yeah, like in tango. In the moment when I actually trust myself and my leader and the music and allow, the moment to inspire me, there are these moments of bliss where everything just flows, right? And every step leads to another, and every mistake leads to something beautiful, and all of a sudden there are legs flying everywhere. And, the onlooker might think this is rehearsed, or that we spend a lot of time thinking about the steps. But the paradox of tango, like the paradox of life, is that the more I'm actually attuned to the moment, and the more I am attuned to the partner that I share this moment with, the more bliss I create, and the more flow and the more inspiration happens in that dance. And I loved, in our first conversation when you and I talked, how you've already taken some of these things into your leadership conversations in your coaching, right?
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of like the bliss on the dance floor, I can experience that if I let myself go and trust in the moment, which isn't always the case, because sometimes there's my tendency to get in my head and worry more about how I look, or leading the fancy steps. And again, this is a metaphor for life where, you know, we can get caught up in trying to be perfect or trying to look a certain way that we have it together. And that really breaks down the experience it robs us of the experience that we could be having when we make more important something that isn't really that important in terms of connection and
Yeah.
life experience.
And I think, this pandemic has taught most of us how important connection is.
Hmm.
And, what we sometimes overlook as dancers or leaders is that not just the connection, but the quality of connection matters so much.
Yeah, yeah. So, so again, these are some of the topics that we want to discuss going forward in future episodes. And just throw some other ideas out there. And I just want to say right now too that we are open to topics from you as well, our audience, uh, things that are happening in your life that maybe you want insight on from a dance perspective, and maybe how or how we can explain it in a dance perspective, or from our coaching. So I mean, I don't see a separation in that it's all one form of communication. Um, but some of the topics are, you know, how can we move each other and be moved on the dance floor or in life?
Yeah, and with that, how can we translate this into conversations that move our hearts, that move us forward, and that connect us more in relationships, whether it's a personal relationship, a professional relationship, or your leadership style?
Yeah, and speaking of leadership, I want to step back a little bit. I jumped ahead in our outline here.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I want to talk about really about like why, and this speaks to this leadership as well. Why are we having these conversations? One is that it's fun. I find this type of conversation really energizing. The second is that as Martina referenced, whether it's the pandemic or the world right now, I feel is it's asking us to show up differently. It's asking for a new type of leadership. And I mean, just imagine for those of you that have partner dance or even just danced together, imagine what it would be like if our world leaders got together and danced, right? And really learned how to lead and listen and follow and really move together as one rather than have it be a battle of who is better or who is worst. You know, imagine if we came together and really learned to partner with ourselves and with each other. So that's a big reason why we're having these conversations. Um, and and even beyond the world leaders, you know, government officials and the people that we tend to think are our leaders and influence our life, I feel there's a call for more self leadership and not only self leadership but leadership within our communities. So whether you're a mom, a dad, employer, employee, spouse, life partner, whatever role that you identify with, you are all leaders in your own communities. And so the more that we can be aware of how we show up, how we impact other people, and how we can be better at partnering with other people, I think everyone benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, and wouldn't it be nice if we brought some of the dance floor etiquette into our conversations off the dance floor, right? Where we are aware of the fabric of agreements that we have with each other and the parameters and the context for conversations. Just alone in Facebook, for example, if we observed some common etiquette that we agree, I think a lot of arguments would turn into a tango or a dance in a different way and
Mm,
not quite as seriously.
yeah, that's beautiful, Martina. Um, so then leaping off of this idea of inviting in a new form of leadership, what does that entail? Like, how do we become better leaders in our own lives? Um, it requires everything that we've talked about up until now, and connection. For me, I love to talk about connection because I notice how the connection with myself influences my connection with my partner, and how if I'm not connected, then my connection with my partner is off, and then it gets into this very physical match.
The martial arts of tango.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There were moments when I would dance with somebody and feel more like a truck being driven around the dance floor than, my partner actually being there present with me. So connection, I second that. That's so important. And that self-awareness, right, that we bring into the dance or into the tango. So, yeah, into the tango or into a conversation so that we don't blaze over somebody or, hijack a conversation with our own agenda. I think these principles translate so well on and off the dance floor.
Yeah, and then with that, there's a sensitivity, and in our world, in our culture, sensitivity is often seen as a weakness. And within tango and this form of leadership, sensitivity is a huge asset, a huge strength to be able to be aware of how your body is feeling, if you're feeling tight or tense, and then also how the sensitivity to listen to your partner, of what is being said and what is not being said,
Mm-hmm.
being able to hear that and know where your partner is, and um, where she isn't. I mean, it is it's such a delicate, intimate conversation that happens on the dance floor, which can also happen in the day-to-day life as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think this better listening that you talk about, that I think a lot of people crave, right? So that we don't have to shout over each other, especially those of us who are a little quieter often and don't want to assert ourselves in the middle of a lot of extroverts, right? That better listening also brings out new facets in the conversation and brings out a more purposeful and intentional conversation. And I think that's a great topic to have nowadays too, to get beyond the small talk.
Hmm. Right. And at the same time, when you talk about, I don't want to be so, I know you didn't use this word, but like aggressive, or so pushy. But there is something about being assertive on the dance floor as a leader, and that one can be assertive without being pushy, right? And sometimes we have that um, misunderstanding because of the models of leadership that we've seen, is that uh, to get our way, we sometimes think we have to be aggressive and pushy, but there is a way to be assertive and be a leader and still honor and respect those around us.
Yeah, and vice versa, from the follower's perspective. There's this misunderstanding that if I follow you in dance, I am the weaker person, or I am surrendering, or I need to give up my own abilities and capabilities. But in tango, it's actually evident because we have that embrace and it has a certain tone rather than pressure, right? So it becomes that conversation to where I actually, the more I listen to you as a leader, the more I find my own ability and my own pauses to play. And so I think the same is true in leadership. When there is a strong leader who knows how to assert his or her intentions or vision without being pushy, there is more freedom than for the follow through and for the follow up, because it requires both in a conversation, a good lead and a good follow. And yeah, so then you get what you called when we last talked, what you call a whole body leadership. And I really love that term, because then you're leading from the heart and with the whole body and with the soul, rather than just out there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, right. You're leading with your heart, you're leading with your sensitivity, listening. Um, and like you said, you're not out there, you're not just in your head. It's not brute force. It is just, again, this beautiful conversation that can create change, right? Create change based on a foundation of respect.
Yeah, and literally and metaphysically pivot to whatever happens.
Hmm. Right.
And so, to recap what we talked about today for, everyone listening is, what are you thinking about this whole dance of life and leadership? What are your thoughts, when you think about how dance, how lead, how follow affects you, and how you can affect your own lead and your own follow in that dance of life?
Yes. So please comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts about what we've talked about before. Again, we invite you to share any insights that you've gotten from our conversation today. We've also have a Facebook page. If I think if you go to facebook.com to Tango conversation, but we'll post the link for you so that it's easier for you to follow. And go ahead, Martina.
Yeah, and whether you're a dancer or not, and whether you consider yourself a leader or not, we are curious to hear your perspectives and your questions, your concerns, your comments. Per dance etiquette, please be kind, please be positive and inspirational. And I look forward to the next step of this conversation.
All right. So thank you everyone for sharing this dance with us. Remember, it takes two to tango. So let's create conversations that move us. And until next time, this is Nat.
And this is Martina, and together we are two life coaches on a mission to make the world a better dance floor. So thank you for the dance.
Thank you so much.